Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Mishna Monday. We are continuing along here in Mishnah's Brachos. Hopefully today we'll get through a few, and let's get straight to it. So last time we had skipped part of the second Mishnah, the second chapter. So I'm gonna go back and finish that up, and then we'll skip to the fourth Mishnah, which is where we're up to. So let me share a screen over here. Hold on, I'm just finding it. Not sure why I'm having a hard time finding it. I'm sorry for the delay. For some reason, I'm having a hard time finding it. There it is. Okay. So here we have our screen. We have, this is the second Mishnah in Brachos. We are in the middle of it. Right here in the bold. Amar Yeshua ben Karcha lama kidma kadma shma levahayim shmor. Yeshua ben Karcha said, why does, right, we know that the Shema prayer is made up of 3 paragraphs. The first one is Shema, right, the famous line, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. That whole paragraph that follows it. V'hayim Shema is the second paragraph, and the third one is Vayomer, right, that's where we pick up the tzitzis, we kiss them. That's the third paragraph of Shema. So the question is, what's the reason for the order that we recite them in? Right? It's not the order that they are chronologically in the Torah. So there has to be a reason. We're not just reading them in the order they appear. There must be a reason why the rabbis saw fit to go and change the order to the one that we have. So what is that reason? Yeshua ben Karcha says, what's the reason? Right, in the English, okay, here's the English. We'll do it in the Hebrew. Why is it first? So the reason is so that you should first accept upon yourself the yoke. Yoke is like like what we put on an ox to help it, a yoke, right, to help it do the work. So it's idea being a burden, not in a bad way, but a burden, like something, a responsibility that we accept. So first we accept on ourselves a yoke of heaven, and then the yoke of mitzvahs, right? Meaning there's a logical order that you first got to believe in God, got to accept upon yourself the idea that you serve God before you go and accept the individual mitzvahs, right? You don't go and, I don't believe in God, but I'm going to do the mitzvahs, right? The natural proceeding of things is first the belief in God and His Torah, and then comes, so now what does God tell me to do, right? First you accept the king, then you accept the king's commands. You don't start listening to the king before you accept the king. Right, and this is the order here because the Shema prayer, the first paragraph, is accepting the yoke of heaven. That's what we say in the first line. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Listen, Israel, hear, O Israel. Hashem is a God, all powerful God, and Hashem is one. We're accepting, the yoke of heaven at that point. The second paragraph starts, right, right? That talks about listening to the mitzvahs. So we first accept the yoke of heaven, then the yoke of mitzvahs. What about the second and the third paragraphs? So Yeshua Karcha says, the second paragraph of the Shema precedes the third paragraph. Because V'hayim Shemor we say by day and by night. Or it applies, I should say, by day and by night. And Vayomer, the third paragraph, does not apply by night. It only applies by day. Right? The way they translate it here. because the paragraph of V'hayom Shemo is practiced both by day and by night, while Vayomer, which discusses the mitzvah of ritual fringes, is only practiced during the day. Okay, a little unclear what the what the intent of this statement is. The simplest reading would presumably be that we recite V'hayom Shemo, we recite the second paragraph both in the in the morning Shema and the evening Shema, but the third paragraph is only recited in the evening Shema. That would be the simplest reading, I believe, of this line. That reading would be subject to debate in the Gemara. The Gemara discusses whether we say the third paragraph at night. The basic, the Talmud, when I say Gemara, that's the Talmud. The basic background is that the bulk of the third paragraph discusses the commandment of tzitzit, of fringes on our garments, and that they are supposed to remind us of the commandments of God, which is why they're in the Shema, because they're in the same motif, the same theme of Shema, of accepting the mitzvahs, accepting God. The tzitzit, the fringes are in that theme because it says in that Torah portion, right, that we see the tzitzit and we remember all the mitzvahs of God, which we discussed in earlier classes how that is, but that's the connection to the Shema. So the tzitzit, that mitzvah, everyone agrees this is only a mitzvah that's done by day. Well, we do it at night, but the mitzvah of tzitzit is only by day. It's a day mitzvah. So therefore, there is an opinion that we only say that paragraph which references the tzitzit and their association with the mitzvot by day, just like the mitzvah itself is only by day. So that would be one potential reading here, that paragraph is not recited at night. Other opinion in the Gemara is that we do say it at night because the end of the paragraph of Vayomer has a dual function. Besides mentioning the tzitzit and how those are supposed to remind us of all the mitzvot, of all the commandments, the end of that paragraph has references the Exodus from Egypt, which is, we had an earlier Mishnah, was the first Mishnah. Hi, Brian, are you there? Hold on, we're just entering, adding. Brian is entering our meeting. So hold on 1 second while he joins. Hello, Brian, how are you? Can you hear me? Hi. Okay, we were just discussing. Okay. Hi, Brian, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, great.
Sorry, I'm late.
No, totally fine. You didn't miss anything because we were just we had, if you remember, last time we did it, we had skipped part of a Mishnah. So we were just going back to that. So we were discussing that the Mishnah says, and this is the second Mishnah in the second chapter of Brachos, that it was discussing the order of the three paragraphs. It said that the Shema paragraph comes before the V'hayom Shemo paragraph because Shema is accepting the yoke of heaven. It's appropriate to accept the yoke of heaven before accepting the yoke of mitzvot, which is V'hayom Shemo. And we're discussing why V'hayom Shemo precedes Vayomer. Why does the second paragraph of Shema precede the third paragraph, which mentions the tzitzit and the Exodus from Egypt? So the Mishnah had said, Shua ben Karcha said, because V'hayom Shemo applies by day and night, and Vayomer applies only by day. So we're explaining what that means. Said one interpretation is that we only say V'hayom Shemo at night, by day, not by night. Sorry, we only say Vayomer by day, not by night. That is subject to a debate in the Talmud, in the Gemara. We don't actually follow that opinion. According to the opinion that we do follow, which is that we say Vayomer by day and by night, and I was explaining the reason for that is because it mentions the Exodus from Egypt, which does apply by night. That was the first Mishnah in this chapter of Brachos, which we say in the Haggadah, if you recall. So the reason what it means when Mishna Monday said, I'll pull up the text again. Here you go. Mishna Monday said, right? Why did Vahayim Shemoah precede Vayomer? Why is the second paragraph before the third? Because the paragraph Vahayim Shemoah is practiced both by day and by night. While Vayomer, which discusses the mitzvah of ritual fringes, is only practiced during the day. So what does that mean, practiced? Right? We do say it by night. So what they say is that Vahayim Shemoah discusses the mitzvah of studying Torah. Studying Torah is a mitzvah that applies by day and by night. But Vayomer discusses the mitzvah of tzitzit, of fringes. Fringes, the mitzvah of fringes we were explaining is only a mitzvah during the day. If you're wearing a four-corner garment at night, technically it's not required in fringes. That's a different discussion now for this class. But since that mitzvah, in whatever sense, only applies during the day, the sages saw fit to put the paragraph of V'hayim Shemoah, the second paragraph, before Vayomer, the third paragraph. Even though chronologically in the Torah, that is not the order in which they appear in the actual Torah, if you were to take a look. So that is the second part. That's the part of the second Mishnah that we skipped. So now I'm going to move on. We did the third Mishnah. I'm going to move on to the fourth Mishnah in the second paragraph. So let me pull it up on my screen. Almost pulled up the wrong one. Okay. Here we have Mishnah 4. Okay. Ha'umnin, laborers, Korin Barosha Elon, they read the Shema on top of a tree. O Barosh HaNidbach, or on the top of like imagine people building a brick building, they're standing on the wall as they're building it. Now, don't think this means what kind of crazy religion is here. You don't have to go, it doesn't mean you need to go on top of a tree or a pile of bricks to recite the Shema. It's probably not even the ideal way to do it. It means that let's say a laborer is busy on the top of a tree picking fruits or whatever he was doing, or he's busy on the top of a wall. So the question is, now it's time he needs to recite the Shema. It's the time that he has to recite it. So does he need to go down to the floor where he'll be standing on solid ground and be able to focus more? Or can he even recite it up there where he presumably will be slightly preoccupied in making sure he doesn't fall out of the tree or fall off the wall? So I'm not saying he works as he's saying, but the question is, they have to spend the time leaving and going back up. So the Mishnah is teaching us that he does not need to do that. He can recite it where he is. And just to contrast, Masha'ena, at the end of the Mishnah, Masha'ena and Rasha'in Lasus Kain B'Tfilah. However, they cannot do that by the Amidah, by the Shmona Esrei prayer, where we stand and we pray to God. And what's the difference between? That's the Mishnah. So, what's the difference between the Shema and the Shmona Esrei? So this highlights a difference in conceptually what we're doing when we say the Shema. When we say the Shemona Esrei, we're speaking to God. That requires constant concentration. In fact, tefillah, prayer, right? If you want to know what's prayer, like the actual, technically prayer is the Shemona Esrei, where we pray to God. So that requires concentration. Prayer is called in Hebrew in the Bible places avodah shavalev, the service of the heart, because even though we do it with our mouth, but it's the heart that counts. It's the mind. When we say heart, we mean the mind. The mind that counts. Without the mind being there, the prayer is sorely deficient. Because what is talking to God without paying attention to what you're saying, just reciting words to him? The point is the concentration that you put into it. Shema is not, I mean, it's part of the prayer service, but Shema is actually not really a prayer. We're not praying to God. We're not requesting things of him when we say the Shema. We're not asking things. We're not thanking him. We're reciting the Shema. The Shema is really to internalize with us certain messages. So since the Shema is a different role than the prayer, the requirement of concentration is not there in the same way that it is by prayer, except we say by the first line of Shema, the Shema line itself, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. That line does require extra concentration because we have to have in mind that we're accepting upon ourselves the yoke of heaven. So since Shema only requires that extra concentration for the first line, we say that he can have that much focus even on top of a tree or on top of a wall that he's in the middle of building. But the prayer, the Amida prayer, we say a person can't focus that much and that long while standing in a tree or on a wall. So he would need to go down on solid ground to recite the prayers. So that's what this mission is teaching us this law and this distinction between prayer and Shema. As in all very classic step you'll have on this mission is the commentators discuss why two cases, why the tree and the wall. Would not one have sufficed? So they basically answer that it's a little harder to concentrate on. I think it's on the wall. I don't remember which one is harder. I think the wall is a little harder to concentrate because it requires a little more balance. So if it didn't tell me, I'm going through these steps because this is like learning 101. Like you'll have this format of question and answer that I'm about to go through comes up all over the place. The same exact format of question and answer. So it's good to get familiar with it. Right? So let's say the wall is harder to concentrate. So if you only told me the wall, then I would think that on a tree, I could say the prayers because it's a little easier to concentrate. If you only told me the tree, I would have said that on the wall, you can't even say the Shema because it's harder to concentrate. So one case of those two, the tree and the wall, the tree is a bigger novel, would be less obvious in the case of the Shemona Esrei, of the Amidah prayer, and the wall case would be less obvious by the Shema that it is permitted. So therefore, we need both cases: one to teach me the bigger law, by the Shema, and one to teach me the bigger law by the prayers. So that is the third Mishnah in this second chapter here. You have any questions or comments, Mr. Brian?
Not at this time, Rabbi. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to see the next Mishnah. I'm going to go back to share my screen. We're going to go on, moving right along to the fourth Mishnah. Okay. The fourth Mishnah says, Chasan pater mekriya shema balayla. Groom, right? Meaning a man who's getting married or who just got married, is exempt from the evening Shema. Sorry, is exempt from Shema, but Laila Harishon ad Motzei Shabbos. For the first night of when he got married, we're assuming he got married at night, the beginning of the night, or at the end of the night, until Motzei Shabbos, until Saturday night. The Mishnah is talking about a case of a man who gets married on Wednesday. So it's 4 nights: Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night. But if you that was the custom back then to get married on Wednesday. just a basic explanation. I believe Wednesday is the day of creation that the fish were created. The fish were given a blessing of Peru Urvu, that they should multiply. There's a certain blessing God gave the fish to multiply. It's an auspicious day to get married on Wednesday. So they would get married on Wednesday, so the first night would be Wednesday night. So Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday is 4 nights. But if you got married on a different day, which obviously many people do today, then it would be 4 nights from then. So if one got married on Sunday during the day, so the 4 nights would be Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night. Even though it says Saturday night here, that's only specific when you get married on Wednesday. So he is not obligated in the Shema prayer. If he did not consummate the marriage. And the basic reason is why he is not obligated in the Shema, as they say in the English here, is because he is preoccupied by concerns related to the consummation of the marriage. Okay, so therefore he is not obligated in the Shema, because somewhat similar to the previous mission, like we were just discussing, since he's preoccupied in other things, he is not required to say Shema. He will not be able to have the proper focus. What exactly the preoccupation is, there are different opinions, but something to do with the consummation of the marriage, and that's why once he consummates it, he becomes obligated once again going forward in the Shema. There's also discussion here, different opinions, whether he is he obligated in the day Shema, because right, these preoccupations only exist at night when he might be living with his wife. During the day, when it's not customarily done, he would not have the preoccupation. So there's discussion. Others say that he's still preoccupied even during the day. So there's discussion about that. So needs a little bit of explaining what's going on here. We don't generally say that somebody who's preoccupied is absolved from a mitzvah. Right? We say, go deal with it. Go get yourself, figure out a way to focus. You can't just say, someone's busy working. You can't say, you know what? I don't have to say Shema today because I'm busy working. We don't say that. You got to man up. Figure out how to do it. Figure out how to get your mind focused a little and do the mitzvah, do the Shema. So what's going on here? That all of a sudden we give in to this guy. You can get off. So the answer is that since his preoccupation is related to a mitzvah, being with a wife ultimately, will hopefully produces children, which is a mitzvah, Peru Urvu, one of the 613 commandments to have children, at least to try. Obviously, it's not all in our hands. And since the preoccupation is related to the mitzvah, we have something, we mentioned this way back a few months or weeks ago, that we learned out from the V'lechlecha b'derech, from the word in the first paragraph of Shema. It says V'lechlecha b'derech, you say it even when you're going on the way, that only when you're going on the way for your own travels, but if you're going on your way to do a mitzvah, you're not obligated. So the reason why over here the preoccupation, which prevents him from being able to focus, allows him not to be able to say the Shema, not to have to say the Shema, is because it's a preoccupation with a mitzvah. But being preoccupied with our own, whatever it might be, would not absolve us from the requirement to say Shema. One final note here. There's a story now, and the rest of the mission that takes place in Rabbi Gamliel. We'll get back to that next week. But one final note here, the commentators do say on the last mission in this chapter, which is similar to this one, similar topic, we'll just mention it here because I don't know when we'll get to there, and I don't want people to be confused. In terms of practical law, the commentaries all say, anyone, already starting over 1,000 years ago, that nowadays, one should say the Shema after getting married, because we don't really have such good concentration anyways that we'll say about ourselves that if I have to, if I'm busy with my marriage, I can't focus on the Shema. If we're being honest with ourselves, we don't have the best focus every day. And the focus that we do have, we can probably have even when, right after getting married, when we're preoccupied with other things. So therefore, in terms of practical law, the commentators already over 1,000 years ago said that this Mishnah would not apply, and a man who gets married should say the Shema, even even that night. He doesn't get a 4-night hiatus or up to 4-night hiatus. Okay, Brian, you have any questions or thoughts on this? What we just read?
Well, I'm gonna have to think about everything.
Yeah, this was a little bit much in this first this little line here, and definitely something you can think about. We can discuss it outside of this class or whenever, next week, whatever is good for you, or not at all. Yeah. You're coming in a little. It's breaking up a little. I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now I think I hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't have anything to add.
Okay. Great. So hopefully next week, Rabbi Blackson will be able to be back on, and we'll pick it up from this story with Rabbi Gamliel. Interesting comment on it that I saw, and we'll see you next week.
All right, thank you, Rabbi.
Okay, thank you. Have a great week. We'll see you.